All right, welcome to the program, The Desk on Global Television. Time for us to look at issues again with a deep analysis from different points of views. On today's edition is no different. We'll be having issues that are coming from the global perspective, and also we'll be looking within Nigeria talking point. And today's edition will kickstart with the big issue about Nigeria's ground norm, where the former Commonwealth Secretary General, in the person of Chief Emeka Anyaoku, on Wednesday warned that if Nigeria refused to do away with the 1999 Constitution, it would be hard for anyone to fix the country. He described Nigeria as a pluralistic country that needed to address its diversity with true federal constitutions. That's by Emeka Anyaoku. So we'll be looking at what this would portend for the country. It's if that's the way forward, doing away with the 1999 Constitution that is currently being amended. Also, we're going to the oil sector, where we're looking at oil production. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, said Nigeria's oil output, excluding the condensate, was 1.434 million barrels per day in October 2024. This shows a huge difference from federal government output figure of 1.8 million barrels per day for October, which includes a condensate. So the issue is the actual condensate output is in an average of 250 barrels per day. So the question is why is there a difference? Almost 4 million barrels short of what the Nigerian government claims Nigeria produces per day. So we'll be looking at that closely, especially it's November 2024 monthly oil market report says that OPEC maintained that the information was based on data obtained from secondary sources. However, when data obtained from direct sources were considered, OPEC put the nation's output at 1.33 million barrels per day, excluding the condensate in October 2024, indicating a marginal increase of 0.6% from 1.324 million barrels per day recorded in September 2024. So we're looking at that from close quarters. Then we'll be talking about insecurity, where President Bola Tinubu has vowed to chase out the notorious Lokarawas terrorist group from Nigeria, stating that his administration will not tolerate their presence in the country. The emergence of these group in Nigeria's northwest region has raised concerns, particularly since their infiltration was facilitated by the recent coup in Niger, which disrupted military cooperation between Nigeria and Niger. So we'll be looking at the implication of these statements, and also the fact that we know that the president made this declaration at the 2024 Comptroller General Customs Conference in Abuja. So we'll be looking closely to see if it's not just all talk without action. That's going to be our area of focus. Then we'll be looking at the hashtag End Bad Governance, where the National Human Rights Commission has called for human rights community to profile the best way to ensure officials involved in the recent prosecution and detention of minors over the August hashtag End Bad Governance protests are adequately sanctioned. So we're looking at this and other issues. Hopefully we'll be joined via Zoom. All attention is focused on Ondo polls that's coming up on Saturday. So all attention will be there. Hopefully we'll be talking to two key persons who are already in Ondo State. We'll be talking to Luke Benga George, who is a diplomatic aide and also a journalist who is in Ondo, to give us an update as regards what's panning out, the preparations out there. And also we'll be talking to the founder of TAF Africa, in the person of Jake Pele, who would be giving us his own perspective from as an election observer, and also someone who is championing the cause of the albino people in the African continent. So we'll be looking at that perspective, as he also highlights the challenges of the vulnerable groups, and especially persons living with disability. These are the two guest hopefully will be joining us in the course of the program to give us a very balanced perspective to all these talking points. Let's go for a quick break. When we return from the break, we'll be having our guests join us from Ondo State as we searchlight how the preparations are for the Ondo Guba polls. Stay with us. All right, welcome back from the break. Now time for us to hit that discuss button and get on track. All right, we've been joined via Zoom by Olugbenga George, who is a diplomatic aide and also a journalist who currently is in Ondo State to monitor, observe, and also report happenings in Ondo State. Good evening, Olugbenga George. Thank you for joining us on the desk. All right, thank you very much. How is the mood in Ondo State? Just give us a quick background as regards the preparations of the different stakeholders from INEC, the political parties, the state government, security agencies, and of course the media, who is playing a very critical role there.
All right. Of course, the entire atmosphere in Ondo State right now speaks elections, and it speaks of the readiness of the different stakeholders that are going to be involved in this election process next tomorrow. Interestingly, the state government has declared tomorrow, Friday, as a public holiday to help the many people who will travel down to the different parts of the state to participate in the election process, to allow them move freely. So the entire atmosphere, is already prepared for the election. Let's begin with security agencies. The federal government has been gracious enough to deploy over 36,000 security personnel, to protect this election. And it is almost
I think we're just having a hitch in in the audio. We hope we'll be able to restore it as soon as possible. But that's just trying to get an update as regards the preparedness of the different stakeholders in the Ondo Guba polls, which is pitching the incumbent governor in the person of Lucky Aiyedatiwa with all the aspirants and candidates of other parties to see who emerges the next governor of Ondo State. Already we hear Mr. President has sent words to the Ondo people to come out en masse to support the incumbent governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa, obviously because he is a member of the All Progressive Congress. And so we're looking keenly how credible will this polls be, knowing fully well that the ruling party has a stake in these elections. Would it go the way of what we saw in Edo State, where it was a clean sweep by the All Progressive Congress, regardless of the fact that the PDP, People's Democratic Party, was the government in power? But this time around, it's a kettle of a different fish, knowing fully well that APC still in power, and so probably would it make it easier. But all remains for the people of Ondo State to decide who becomes the next governor, and also a role for INEC to play to ensure that we have very credible elections. All right, I think we've got Olugbenga George back with us. Olugbenga George, thank you for rejoining us.
Thank you for having me. It was network interruption. I apologize for that.
That the government had already deployed 36,000 personnel to ensure a peaceful elections.
Yes, to ensure peaceful process in the election, and of course the election materials, which is very important to be protected in the course of this election. Let's also speak to the readiness of INEC. Earlier in the week. We saw how, or sometime last week, the peace accord was signed, and it had the major candidates of the political parties, signed, except, of course, the People's Democratic Party. Most of the candidates signed to promise that they will ensure peace and safety, and that they would accept the results of the election as long as it is free, fair, and credible. So yes, I want to believe that the Independent National Electoral Commission is ready, although we live in a funny country where you may not get to know their readiness until the day of the election itself, when you will start hearing that election materials were not deployed to certain places and all of that. It is almost a normal, in the Nigeria electoral process. But let us hope, like INEC promised, that it will not allow the mistakes it's made in Edo State to repeat itself in Ondo. Let us hope that they will walk the talk this time around. When it comes to the candidates, of course, it's been display of campaigning activities across the different political parties.
All right, Olugbenga George, before you continue, we've got one of the talking points on today's program, The Desk. We've got one of the talking points saying, looking at Ondo 2024, thugs attack PDP members in Idiare, police react. Can you give us updates what really happened there in Idiare? Because it's one of our talking points. Ondo 2024, thugs attack PDP members in Idiare, police react. So give us updates as we get what really played out, since we're talking security matters now.
Okay, well, because of the part of the state where I am, I only also got to read about it, and I have not been fully briefed on the details. But I am aware, I read it somewhere, that the deputy governor, the stronghold of the deputy governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party, yes, that is Honorable Festus King Bashaw, was his crew, that actually had that experience. And of course, there are reports that about 4 persons actually lost their lives. The police are trying to give us the full detail to that, and I'm hoping that before the end of the day, I'll be able to get feeds from other parts of the state to fully brief us on what's happening with that respect.
All right, let's just get one more take from you before we have another guest that will also be joining us from Ondo State. But let's look at the issue of the PDP, the opposition parties, and the other parties in this contest. Would you say they've been given free, level playing ground for other parties?
Well, I've been on ground for a number of days, and I have seen the APC campaign, I have seen the PDP campaign, I have seen the Social Democratic Party campaign, I have seen the Labour Party campaign, I have seen the Zenith Labour Party campaign, I have seen the Young People's Party campaign. So I want to believe that everybody had the liberty to campaign effectively and talk to the Ondo State people, sell themselves, and tell them of what they intend to do to give to the Ondo State people in this election. Of course, it is also almost normal that when you have an incumbent in a race alongside other parties who are not in government, that the incumbent may seem to dominate. That is one of the things that I see, in the campaigning process across the states, across the different parts of the state. You will see the banners. You would see pictures and images of incumbent Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa, in strategic positions. However, other political parties also had the opportunity to erect their billboards, paste their posters, and I have not seen the case where, in many places where you see people's posters being turned or any of those things. It has always been, it has been so far so good. Everyone has had a level playing field to at least campaign and tell the people what they want to do for them after 2024.
All right, the last question we have for you before we let you go, then you hopefully will rejoin us later on, is the question of the fact that we know that the ruling party is in place. We saw what played out in Edo State, and just today the president did call out on the people of Ondo State to come out en masse to support the governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa. Do you think the power of incumbency is playing a very strategic role in these elections that makes it almost impossible for the incumbent to be ousted?
Well, I would have said yes straight away, if not for the recent Edo State election, where we had the incumbent party and the person whom the incumbent governor was supporting lose election. So I would only say that everybody is out and they have been able to sell themselves, and the result we will get will be totally dependent on how effectively each of these candidates have been able to sell themselves to the Ondo State people. However, like it is almost traditional also of our political system that the incumbents always have certain advantages like having enough financial war chest to prosecute an election process, especially where publicity is concerned. You also have a structure across the 36 states. You remember that recently Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa appointed about 320-something aides. And these aides, their responsibility, of course, one would have known that it is toward this election, and that automatically gives him an edge because from the wards, from the local government, from the polling units that these people emerge from, they will be able to at least canvass their people, and the people he might through that have gotten some level of sentiment as someone who will run an inclusive government. So maybe that would be an advantage, but I think it was just a smart political move. But all of that will still come to look at it. Ondo State is large. It has almost 4,000 polling units, 3,933 to be precise, and about 230 wards. So it's a whole lot of work, and one will only wait to see as the election further approaches whether the power of incumbency will dominate this. Let's also look at the very strategic area where the governor comes from. I think that is another factor that will play out strongly in this election. The governor comes from the riverine area of Ilaje, and in that area you have the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, who is an Apoy man, who comes, who is almost like a neighbor to the Ilaje community or the riverine area. The candidate of the Labour Party, Shola Ebisheni, is also an Ilaje man from the same area. And then you have Otumba Bamidele Akingboye of the SDP, who is an Ikale man from the same area. And of course, you also have the YPP candidate from the same area. So when you look at all of these candidates, you would realize that the election is almost like a compound election, and people, especially from that region, are left with a plethora of choices. But I think what will decide the winners of this election will not be those areas. Will be areas like the Central, who perhaps do not have a direct stake in the process, or the northern part of the state, the Akokos, who also do not have a direct response. The people in Ose local government, who also are sort of in between. So and then the non-indigents, who are also very active within the state. These are the people who will determine, but most of the candidates happen to emerge from one zone, from one senatorial district, from one zone of the state, and that will play a very, very big role in who wins this election. But ultimately, the state, I believe, is ready. I have seen a lot of people travel down, and a lot of people will still travel even tonight and tomorrow morning to their different polling units to support their favored candidates for this election.
All right. Before we go for the first break, let's just look at in terms of the sensitive materials, which was a very key factor. Its arrival, how did it arrive safely as, announced by INEC, and would you say it has had safekeeping in the Central Bank of Nigeria, and has it got into the local government areas also? And for the political parties, have we heard any, and their supporters, do you think we're likely to have a peaceful elections, and election observers also, are they on ground?
From the look of things, the election materials arrived safe and sound, and there has been no report so far of whether there was an attack on any of the materials. I want to believe that they are in safekeeping right now, and at present will be deployed to the different areas. Ondo State is not that large, so I want to believe that part of the reason why you are having the public holiday tomorrow is so that these materials can also move freely without any hiccups to the different locations where they'll be going. So to the riverine areas, for example, you will have the election materials go to those places. They need to have arrived, of course, before the D-Day, and that seems to be like the farthest across the state. The Ondo North, where you have the Akokos, is just a walk away from, maybe an hour or two away from Akure, the capital city, where the central bank is kept. So I think within the next 24 hours, all of this can be done effectively without any hookups. Having said that, it means, or it might be safe to say that the people are ready to actually have this election without any form of interruptions on Saturday, all things being equal. We do not know other than now. We are only hoping, that the election is free, it is fair, and it is credible, and that the people have no hiccups, whatever, that there is nothing stopping them from exercising their constitutional right of voting for their choice candidates in the coming elections.
All right, and finally, in terms of the observers, I just wanted to get it clear. Are the presence of election observers, and also the people, the locals there, the voters, the electorates, what's the major concern of electorates? Do they seem to back the incumbent governor to win?
The election observers, I've seen quite a number of them in town today. Some will continue to arrive even till tomorrow, but observers are here on ground, and I'm sure the different ones, and of course also media people are compiling their reports for this election. So yes, observers are on ground, and I'm sure from tomorrow there will be pre-election reports to the public that will be released by the different observer groups. Also, the Ondo State people are ready. One thing that I think is important for the world to know is that Ondo people are actually politically aware people. Ondo State is a state where, people are concerned. It is not like every other state where you have only a few concerned people who want to participate in the election. Everyone is eager. Everyone wants to participate. Everyone has a stake in this election. And like I mentioned earlier, because we are talking about whether the incumbent has an advantage. Like I mentioned earlier, if your brother or your sister has been appointed, as a special advisor to the governor, and coming from your ward or your polling unit, I bet you want to be interested somehow. And probably that advisor is already a canvasser for the incumbent governor in that regard. Nevertheless, the different candidates are also on ground. I have related with quite a number of them since I got here, and I see that they are putting in the effort and putting in the work that is required for them to have the kind of results that they get. But like we say, only time will tell how much their effort will play out as compared to the power of incumbency during the elections.
All right. Thank you very much for that update. We've got other interesting talking points we'll be looking at on the desk. But before we go for the quick break, I just want to get your view as regards what the former Commonwealth Secretary General, Chief Emeka Nyaku, said, where he warned that if Nigeria refused to do away with the 1999 constitution, it would be hard for anyone to fix the country. He described Nigeria as a pluralistic country that needed to address its diversity through federal constitutions. Do you agree with the XY Secretary General of the Commonwealth?
Absolutely, I agree with with Dr. Emeka Anyaoku, and that's very, very strong statement. It is a statement that has pervaded the political atmosphere in Nigeria for a while. Everybody's been talking about the faults that exist in our constitution and its ability to provide proper governance, for the Nigerian people, provide a governance that is inclusive, for everyone. A lot of people have said it is unjust, and there are quite a lot of issues when you actually look at it, really. And that takes us to another conversation, which is, the form of government that we run currently in Nigeria. You will also remember that simultaneously there was a committee that was set up, or there was a program that held, I think quite yesterday or thereabouts in Abuja, where the House of Representatives, set up that dialogue session where people could come air their minds about returning to parliamentary system of government. And I think that goes very well with what Dr. Emeka Anyaoku is talking about, that we need to actually migrate to a system that works for us. The presidential system, has not been effective in delivering the dividends of democracy because of the power that is resident with the president. The presidential system, was a copy and paste system, but I guess it has been wrongly placed, within the Nigerian political system. So yes, and the key document to address that is the Constitution. One of the major issues with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is the Section 2, that talks about the fact that government should be responsible for the security and welfare of its citizens. And this has been argued by many schools of thought that it is a position that is not justiciable. It cannot be challenged in courts, and hence you have seen politicians take advantage of this at different times. They get into power, they do what they want, and they leave the people poorer, more broke, more destitute than they met them. And they on top of that, you see them exhibiting, opulence widely, at the detriment of the people who continue to grow poorer and poorer, exhausting the resources that belongs to the people. So yes, I believe I'm one of the strong persons that believe strongly that the Nigerian Constitution needs to be revisited in such a way that it becomes a document that provides equity, justice, and fairness for every concerned Nigerian. I also believe that the system of government, needs to be rechecked because it has not delivered on the essence of governance to the people. Yes, and if the parliamentary system of government is the way to go, after looking at this, I think maybe we may now begin to think of embracing it. But first, like I join my voice with that of Dr. Emeka Anyaoku to say, yes, we need to revisit the Nigerian Constitution. This Ninth Assembly set up a committee, if you remember, upon its inception, And up until now, one will have thought that they have done a lot of work with that regard to see that they come up with a submission as to what exactly we are changing. Because some people are saying, well, it is not a total overhaul of the Constitution. Maybe we just need to adjust some parts, and others are saying, see, let us dump this completely. My position is, whichever way we want to do, if we are going to just looking at revisiting the Constitution to expunge the parts that do not represent the interest of the people, that do not bring the essence of governance and unite the Nigerian people, then we must do that immediately.
All right.
Or if we have the latitude, we can also just dump it and quickly get down to work to provide a document, that is holistic in nature.
All right, thank you. That's George Olugbenga George there giving us his take as regards the comments by former Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Chief Emeka Anyaoku. We'll go for a quick break. When we return from the break, we'll be taking our next guest here, who is also joining us from Ondo State. He is no other person but the founder of TAF Africa, the person of Jake Ikpele. Stay with us. Is the desk on Global Television.
Nigeria. Come join Anthony Momodu on television's most compelling and facts-finding talk live show.
We are the Palestinians. We are the Canaan because
that this country gets it right.
Who are these bandits?
It's the Dex on Global Television, where we analyze and dissect storming issues and commentaries in the world's biggest black nation, Nigeria.
Who is being held accountable for this money?
The eyes have it.
We stay and decide policies and reforms on the Dex. Tune in Mondays to Fridays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Global Television. Let's stay on the Dex.
All right, welcome back from the break. It's still the desk on Global Television, and we're looking at issues making rounds across the globe and in Nigeria. Specifically, our focus is on the Ondo elections coming up on Saturday. Previous guest is Olugbenga George, who has given us an insight into the preparedness of all the various stakeholders for that elections coming up. Now it's time for us to join our next guest. His name is Jake Ikpele, who is the CEO and founder of TAF Africa, joining us from Ondo State. Good evening, Jake Ikpele. Thank you for joining us on the desk.
Oh, thank you. I wish your technical team would connect to my next device, which is my laptop. Okay, so I think they're trying to do that. Yeah, it's been tough. Yeah, it's been tough trying to connect. But I'm glad I'm here. Yeah.
All right, let's look at what's happening in Ondo State already. We did get the news as regards the people living with disability that there was an inspection tour by INEC and stakeholders as regards people living with disability, how they would be part of the 2024 Ondo Guba polls. From your own perspective as the founder and CEO of TAF Africa, what have you witnessed as a global election observer?
Well, it's the expectations are high. There is effort on the part of TAF Africa to create more awareness for the election, in particular for persons with disability, but also in general for the entire citizens. And we're doing that. We just finished the training of our observers that will be deployed across the state on Saturday. We are doing targeted observation in the sense that we are focusing on specific polling booths, polling units, where we have been guided by data that there are persons with disability. So it's a very systematic process, focusing on where we can find persons with disability in each polling unit. So in terms of preparation, I think there's a lot of presence of CSOs, in Akure and the states in general. Is relatively calm, although there are rumors that there has been one or two security breaches, but is relatively calm. From the feelers, the people are more a bit hungry than just looking forward to going to the polls. And so there is no doubt that the economic situation might somehow create some level of voter apathy. The governor have declared tomorrow as public holiday to allow people go back to their respective local governments and polling units in order to participate. So far, so good. It's great. It's looking great, and hopefully the outcome will look greater.
All right. The talking point we are right now is INEC stakeholders inspect materials, push for PWDs, that's persons living with disability. In terms of the INEC and inspecting materials, as an observer, are you impressed with the early arrival of the sensitive materials, and would you say they are in safekeeping in the Central Bank of Nigeria as instructed?
Yeah, well, we've seen the vehicle movement of Central Bank going back and forth from Ibadan, obviously, and there is obvious movement of sensitive material as of today, which is a good thing if they can bring all the sensitive material from whichever depot and ensure that by tomorrow those sensitive materials are evenly distributed. I have no direct information about the persons with disability material being inspected by INEC. I don't have that, except when I get the brief by my staff who are in the field and our observers across the state. But be that if that is the case, that's a good development because people like myself calling on INEC to recognize the resources, inclusive resources, as sensitive material. And so if they displayed it today, and some of our colleagues and community members went to inspect it, that's a good development. But I'm not there, and I'm not aware that exercise took place. It's possible it did, but I wasn't there, and I'm hearing it for the first time from you.
Would you say have been your key observations so far since your arrival in Ondo State in terms of the power of incumbency? Do you see it playing out? And the president today did give call out on the Ondo people to come out en masse to support the incumbent governor. Would you say it's been a level playing ground for all candidates in this Guba polls? And also security agencies, how would you score them?
Well, I mean, the president calling out on the electorate to vote his candidate is expected. I'm sorry, they just took light. I'm sure probably they'll bring it back. The president calling his candidate to be voted, which is the APC candidate, is expected. However, I also expect him to lend his voice by calling on the entire citizens to go out and vote as much as possible, you know. So, like I said, it's expected that he would do that, you know. But I would expect him as the father of the nation to also focus on making sure that people come out and participate in this process and then vote the candidate of their choice, you know. So in terms of the power of the incumbent, yes, I mean, it's obvious that whoever is in power has a lot of resources in his hands and can wield a lot of influence. But so far, so good. I think there's been a relatively level playing ground. And I say that evidentially, speaking from the tour that I just took to the broadcast media, their television station. I was on their TV station, and surprisingly, I saw the chairman of the broadcasting house. I think it's called OSH. Is the state Ondo State Broadcasting Corporation. Surprisingly, the chairman was speaking non-partisan and saying that he has given every one of them the opportunity to take advantage of the publicity that his institution can give. That's very commendable, you know. And so for me, it appears that there's a likelihood of a level playing field, and hopefully we will see that translate on Saturday, and then we'll come back to your channel to say exactly what we saw. You know, so far so good. The state is peaceful, relatively peaceful, at least in the state capital where I am.
All right.
You know, we'll find out what.
Okay. Just to get you did mention the issue of the economic situation of the state and people, which might lead to voter apathy. Do you think this might also lead to vote buying and selling to the people, considering their economic situation?
Oh yes, I won't be surprised. As a matter of fact, that may be the order of the day. It happened in Edo, and I will not be surprised. I think politicians are taking advantage of the economic hardship that is biting so bad. They may take advantage of that. But let us not preempt them. We are hoping that it won't happen, but then I will not be surprised if it does happen.
All right. Before we go to talk about other issues of national interest, just to get your take, we did get the story about an attack on PDP members in Idiare of the state. Was there any? What's your information as regards that occurrence of an attack on PDP members? And is that a bad sign?
Yeah, well, that's not a good sign at all. But I heard it. I don't have any evidence to corroborate that story, but it might be true. And if it's true, that's a bad omen. And the security operative needs to be very careful. Taking bearing from what happened in the River State local government election, I'm one of those who are beginning to question whether we really need all the shenanigans that we see, all the show of force that we see that the security operatives do, because Governor Fubara proved them wrong by conducting that local government election, and it was almost crisis-free, So the level of personnel and the funds, taxpayers' money, that is spent by security operatives monitoring election, and before you know it now, they will tell you that they are deploying 30,000, like we heard in Ondo, that they deployed 35,000 men on ground, security personnel on ground. I'm beginning to question the veracity of their claim. Sometimes do they really, do they really post that number of personnel, and what for? Because oftentimes you notice that there are still security breaches, despite the number that they have. There were in although was a bit, or Edo, although Edo was a relatively peaceful, but I want the election umpires and political parties to take a hard look at the number of security personnel that most times we claim that we deploy for election like this. Is it really worth it? If a whole state, River State, could do without them, then we're beginning to think there's a need for us to reconsider the number of security personnel that we get involved in an electoral process. Sometimes they turn around and create the same crisis that they are there to
prevent,
avoid.
All right. I want to say a big thank you for joining us on the desk this evening and for giving us the insight as regards people living with disabilities, the preparedness of the relevant stakeholders for the Ondo Guba polls. Hopefully tomorrow and in the coming days, we would be joining you also to get a clear picture of how the event unfolded. Thank you very much, and we would allow you to enjoy the rest of the day, and our special warm regards to the people of Ondo State.
Thank you. Do you have your reporter here? Do you have your reporter on ground?
Yes, we do, and definitely our reporter will be reaching out, covering every part of the elections, and hopefully we'll be getting across to you too, so that we can get all the needed coverage. Thank you very much. All right, that's how we're going to be calling it a wrap on today's edition of the program, The Desk. And I want to say a big thank you to the founder and CEO of TAF Africa, in the person of Jake Pele, who joined us and gave us some quick thought as regards what's playing out in Ondo State. And also not forgetting Olugbenga George, who is a diplomatic aide and journalist, also helping us give us a roundup of the expectations of the people of Ondo State ahead of the Guba polls on Saturday. My name is Anthony Momodu saying thank you for being part of The Desk.